Hello, Nashville. I am extremely happy that I have been approved and I can be a presenter of this very first session of a day. I hope you're all awake. I hope you had your first coffee of a day. And I hope you're ready and set for this awesome event for the O365 Nashville 2020 virtual event. So I have to say, and I've been saying this at nearly every virtual event I'm taking part lately, that apart from all the bad sides that we are facing today around this coronavirus breakout, pandemic, and so on, is one positive thing. And this thing is that we're going to actually take part in nearly any event that is taking place around the world. And so I've never been to the United States, unfortunately. I was planning that to visit the United States this year during MVP Summit, most valuable professional summit. But unfortunately, due to coronavirus, it didn't take place in person. So, as said, I'm extremely happy, and I hope you're happy as well seeing me. So let's get this session rolling. It's going to be about UI flows. This is a kind of a new technology, a kind of a new addition to the Power Platform. It was announced during Microsoft Ignite 2020 by Satya Nadella. And right now, so the 1st of April was a day when it reached the general availability. So right now it's available to anyone. It is also available to be used in a productive enterprise system. So let me show you how it works, what this tool is all about, and why we should at least look at it when thinking about RPA tools. Before I really continue, I just wanted to make a big applause to all our sponsors, or to InfoWorks and Valo. Thank you very much, our dear sponsors, for helping this event to take place and don't giving up on us. Then if you're interested in sessions, here are the links, the evaluation, the session slides, and everything about the agenda. So just memorize those hyperlinks. And lastly, my beloved moderator will help me doing that. But please be aware that during the whole event you should be muted. You can't present your screen, but you shall be muted. If you have any questions, and I'll try to make gaps during my presentation so you can post them verbally, but at any time you can just simply write them in a chat window, and Ben will simply read them and try to ask them during the session. So when I make a gap, don't hesitate, ask me the questions verbally. Other time, simply please be muted and let me just talk. All right, let's continue. My name is Tomasz Poszytek. I'm coming from Warsaw in Poland. It's far away. It's far away from Nashville. I'm an expert in generally Microsoft technologies, but basically and precisely speaking, it's about the processes, business processes, and business applications. I've been working with processes in Microsoft for many years, not only for 4 years. 4 years is just with the Power Platform, but before then I was working with Nintex. I'm still working with Nintex basically, and with SharePoint Designer as well. If you're interested in what I'm writing about, what I'm doing, you can check on my blog and see what I'm writing on. And as well, you can follow me on my Twitter. I encourage you to follow me on my Twitter. I'm starving to have more followers. All right. So what is RPA? Basically, RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation. This is a technology that actually helps you to mimic user behavior. Today, RPA is quite a huge market. It's really a huge market. It's a third search term on Gartner.com. So there are many companies on different levels, enterprise, small businesses, that are interested in RPA, that would like to learn more about the RPA, that already are mature enough to realize and discover that they do have processes in their landscape, IT landscape, that can be actually enhanced by incorporating RPA as well. We have a quite strong leadership in the RPA market globally. We have the UiPath Automation Anywhere and Blue Prism, and they're being leaders for a couple of years right now, but there is also a huge number of competitors like UiFlows or Nintex RPA or any other tools that are here presented. And as you can see, this market is just growing. So this maturity and awareness in the companies about what they can do with RPA is still rising, and therefore this market is still developing. The Microsoft Power Platform, as we know it, or maybe as we knew it, or maybe still as you know it, is today an ecosystem, an environment where us, the system developers, the power users, can actually create any kind of applications, business applications, business dashboards, business processes, without actually the need of coding. So we have Power BI for analytics and data visualization. We have Power Apps for business applications and forms. We have Power Automate for the processes. And then lately, we also been given the Power Virtual Agents to create the chatbots. Again, what is important, what makes all these applications similar, is that we don't actually need to code anything. They allow us to create all these solutions on this no-code approach. But because we always can create some code, they're called a low code. And then underneath them, there is the data connectors. There's AI Builder that helps all these platforms to leverage their capabilities with the AI. And there is also Common Data Service that serves as a data source for all these platforms. Today we have speaking about those connectors, over 300 connectors. I think it's 352 or something like that. And these connectors are not only to Office 365 or Microsoft 365 endpoints and applications. These are connectors to many third-party tools and services that are hosted around the world, around the internet, that we can incorporate in our business processes and make them even more intelligent. So yeah, and then even if there are no connector that we would like to use, but we know that this application that we want to integrate in our system, in our process, has API, we can still create a custom connector, or we can call that application through the web request, the HTTP request action. The question was, what can we do if we do not have an interface, if we have a system that actually runs on an old machine, or is just old enough that doesn't have any kind of an interface, any kind of an API yet? And for these situations, Microsoft is introducing us the UI Flows. Now, the UI Flows is an RPA from Microsoft, and it's meant to help us to first integrate all these applications that don't have their own API, and on the second hand, it is used as well to automate all these processes that our employees are doing, that are repeatable, that are the same anytime, every time, that can be automated. So then employees can be moved to more demanding tasks, more complex tasks, not to burn out on those easy, like nearly anytime copy-paste between systems tasks. So the Power Automate that we know today, or maybe like a couple of months ago, was helping us to automate all these systems that had their APIs, that had their connectors, that had their interfaces, those digital interfaces, or API interfaces. And it was enhanced last year with AI that helped the processes to as well go into documents, to go into objects, images. So then we were able to actually also get the data back from those let's say, paper-based data. And today, we are also able to move to another level to as well automate the interfaces, the applications that we can only connect, that we can only call through their user interface, through their legacy interface. Sorry, not legacy interface, but through their user interface, because they have no other way to be called. So what the RPA actually is, what UI Flows RPA is a tool that helps us to bridge those gaps between those old legacy applications or even modern internet applications, but their common thing is that they don't have any kind of the API, any kind of the interface apart from the user interface that we can use to get the data out of those systems or to write to those systems. And so with UI Flows, we can actually query the interface, we can get information from the interface, we can put information back to the interface. So in the end, the UI Flows is simply doing what a user would be doing, but is doing this in a programmed way, in a coded way, so that if there are no major changes on the interface of these applications, it will do this job over and over again, errorless, faster, in a more reliable way, because it is just programmed to do it. And then users can really focus on those more demanding, more advanced topics. And with UI Flows or any other kind of the RPA, we can actually integrate in our processes those tools, those applications that were not possible to be integrated ever before. Because ever before, that was a human employee, that was a person who was sitting in the middle and was, for example, copying data from SharePoint to SAP or from SharePoint to any other kind of legacy application, or between any kind of two applications on two sides on the process that were just not, bindable together any other way than through the user interface. So that's what the RPA is actually. The UI Flows today is working in two modes. So unfortunately, it cannot be run in a single mode, in a same mode two ways. It can run either on desktop or on the web app. But because UI Flows cannot run without Power Automate, then think of the Power Automate as a kind of a canvas that triggers UI Flows. And then in a single Power Automate, you're going to have multiple UI Flows being triggered. So then you can have one UI Flow calling desktop application, then another UI Flow calling web application, and then, for example, putting their outputs of what the UI Flow on a desktop did. So think of the UI Flow as an action that has its inputs and outputs, and then Power Automate as about a regular process, as a regular workflow that can call those UI Flows. And therefore, even though we need to record web and desktop separately, we can then merge them together in a single process and move this data between the systems. Cool, huh? So, when we think about the UI Flows, what do we actually need to consider? So first, as I said, because the UI Flows is being triggered and controlled by the Power Automate, we need to have a Power Automate license, either paid or trial plan. Also, the account that we are using to record the steps on the desktop needs to have local administrator privileges, and preferably that should be a work or school account from Azure. The system that we are using should be Windows 10 Professional or higher, or Windows Server 2016 or higher. UI Flows is only working under the Chromium browsers. Today it's only Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome. We should also have an environment that is having a common data service database, because UI Flows is storing all the information about the recorded steps into the CDS. and it is. And lastly, we should have a working keyboard and mouse pointer, because those two peripherals are going to be used to record user activities. Now, what prerequisites we need to fulfill to be even able to run the UI flows? First, we need to actually download and install UI flows installer that will install on our computer two applications. First is the UI flows web browser extension that is used for the desktop-based UI flows and for the actually, well, web-based flows as well. And we also need to have the UI flows steps recorder. This application is installed and is going to be used both for recording and therefore playing. We also need to have on-premises data gateway, which is used to call our computer from Power Automate to actually trigger and play those recorded steps so that the UI flows can actually replay what we recorded in the first place. So you'll see it in a minute. And lastly, if we are thinking about doing or recording and working with the web-based UI flows, then we also need to have the Selenium web browser extension downloaded and installed. 4 things. All right, plus the requirements around the platform. Okie dokie. So this is the time that we should just switch to the browser and check the UI flows demo. All right. So once you open Power Automate and you go into My Flows, or if you go to Create, you will notice there is this UI flows tile present. So hit it, and then you can create a UI flow. So once you start this creation, you will be asked what kind of flow you want to create, desktop or web. Let's start from desktop. So this demo is going to be about the UI flow that is writing to this Contoso invoicing application. It is an old legacy application that has no API at all. It's used to simply store those invoicing records and information if they were paid or maybe they are just invoiced and what is their status. That's it. So I need these 3 inputs: the account, I need contact, I need as well the amount, let's say 2000. What I do need? So I would also need a status, but I'll show you how you can automate these, let's say, different fields than just a simple input. Let's say paid. All right, the next step here is actually the recorder. So if I did not have this UI flows extension installed, or if it was not enabled, then instead of having a button to launch recorder, I would have a button to download and install the UI flows extension and desktop recorder. But since I do have it already, so that since I do meet those prerequisites, I'm all ready to start the recording. So now once I hit the launch recorder button, you'll see that there will appear a new application at the top of my window. Here is the recorder. So now I'll just go to the blank desktop and hit record. So first start the Contoso invoicing. Next I will, okay, so before I move on, note that once I'm hovering my mouse on the specific items from the interface, those are being surrounded with this small border. That means that UI Flows is actually able to identify this specific element of the UI and then work on it. So now what I need to do now is to hit go to invoices, and then I want to create a new record. What is also important here is that UI flows is not only recording my clicks, it is also recording the delays between these clicks, because let's say Microsoft thought, or still is on a position, that the reason why we have these delays between one click and another are not caused because the fact that I'm talking to you right now, and that simply I cannot do two tasks in parallel and I just cannot click it faster, but this is because the fact that the UI is not yet ready for my second click. So because of that, they think, okay, so if he's not clicking like in seconds, it means the UI is not ready. So the UI flows should as well wait before the next click. So that's the only reason. But we can change it. So right now I want to use those inputs. So I want to use account, put it in account field. Then I want to use contact and put it in a contact field. And lastly, I want to use amount to put it in amount field. And then I want to change the status, but I can't do it this way yet. I need to do it another way. Okay, so I have my record done or stored. So the next thing I want to do is to get the output. I want to record this ID. All right. And then close the application so that there is just one instance every time running. And done. Now once I go back to the UI Flows designer, I can notice that this scope that was previously filled in only with the button and small instruction is now filled in with all these steps that I've been doing. Now note that for each step that has been taken by me, I see the screenshot of the area of the item in the UI that was actually clicked or that was used to make this action, plus two fields. First one is this wait after action. So that's the field that tells the action how long it should wait after the first action is completed. And then the selector, which actually is telling the UI flows what element in the UI it should click or it should use to complete this step. So this is a selector that is taken from the back of the interface application. So if I change it now to 2 seconds, it will be triggered much faster. And then note that between my first click and the second click, this delay is 68 seconds minute. So just let me change it to a second because well, I can do those clicks very fast. Then there are the inputs, and I promised you that I will show you how to, for example, automate these the drop down. So the first click was on a drop down, and then the second click was actually on the value. The selector here is actually telling, hey, click this item from the drop down that has a name invoiced. And so if I replace this invoiced with a status dynamic variable, then it is going to be dynamic, so it will be not replaced as a static invoiced option, but as an option given by the status outcome. And lastly, there was this closure, but again, in Power Automate, we have a couple of opportunities to work smarter or even more reliable. So instead of just clicking close button, I can use close application activity or action. Now there are a couple of other actions I can choose from. So for example, I can check if the field is enabled or not, and then based on that, do other actions. I can also clear elements, so that if I had an input field with a value in it by default, and I wanted to override it with my value, then instead of just clicking multiple times backspace, 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 or maybe Control A delete, I can just use this clear element activity. Next thing is that we can also send keys to the element, so that instead of using an input value and then just sending the value to the field, I can simply type in something. Okay, so now I'll close the application. The next step of creation of UI flows is to review if all outputs are registered properly. They are. And then lastly, I can trigger this UI flow to run. So let me change these values now a bit and check if it's going to work. So now once I hit the Test Now button, this run of the UI flows is going to be done locally. So this is not going to be done through the on-premises gateway. It's just going to be done locally. All right. Now I have my hands here. So let's wait and see how it works. You see that the Contoso invoicing application is launched. Okay. Invoices. New record. Now note that the status is going to be set to paid once it goes to the status, not invoiced as it was in my previous example. Okay. Now it's going to copy the ID. Also note those delays, right? Those delays are quite long because I was talking and clicking in the same time, which never works. Yeah, and lastly, it should close application. Okay, so it was run successfully and the output was registered as well. So I'll now save it and close. Okay, let me just jump back to the UI flows. So the next thing I want to do before we move on is to talk a little bit about the next version of the UI flows, the next part of UI flows, which is the UI flows for web. The UI flows for web, that will be very fast, is controlled by the Selenium extension. This is the Selenium extension. This is created by, it's like an open source project. And this is not part of Microsoft. And it's just being incorporated to the UI flows because this extension is dedicated to automate activities on the web pages. So in this case, Microsoft did not actually focus on creation or maybe extending or giving a support to their desktop recorder, also the capabilities to read fields or UI controls from web pages. Instead, that they thought that maybe the Selenium IDE that is already present on the market and is giving all these functionalities that they need is much better. So now once I attempt to create a new web app, that is going to be the UI flows for the web, you'll see how it's going to work. So that will be a currency conversion. There is definitely a service for that, so that I can call it through any kind of HTTP requests or so on. But for the purpose of this demo, let me just use a web browser conversion service. Okay, and we'll use Bing. Now, once I launch the recorder, you'll notice that it has already started a new project. So then when I hit record, let me just move it here. When I hit record, it will open the bing.com browser. Now what I want to do is to say Bing 500 USD to, no, the idea is going to be different. So let's assume that user is inputting their value in, for example, Polish zlotys, but because the CRM you saw previously is expecting dollars, then we need to convert from Polish zlotys to dollars. So let me say from PLN to USD. So now you can see that Selenium has already recorded what page I have opened, where I have typed and what, that I have sent a key enter to this field. And now the next comment I want to do is to say store value, store value. Now this comment is used to actually get value from the interface, and it has this small pointer. So now I want to use it. You can see that this is actually working nearly the same as the UI Flows desktop recorder. So wherever I hover on the UI of the web page, it is highlighting or surrounding this element with this overlay. But I want to read this US dollars conversion. So you can see that it has read the ID of the field. I as well need to provide a variable name. All right. And then lastly, I want to say close the application. All right. So that is done. Now I can play it to check if it's working. It is working. Now, last thing I want to do is to parameterize this input to be actually a variable, a dynamic variable, instead of a fixed value. So for that, I need to use this kind of a placeholder. So it will create an input variable called PLN currency, and then this converted currency is going to be an output variable. Okay, I need to save it. So right now I have two UI flows created. The first one is creation of the new record in this legacy application CRM. Sorry. The second one is a currency conversion. And so let's make this whole as a working solution. So I'll create a new manual triggered flow just for the purpose of this demo. I want to have 4 inputs. The account, the contact, amount, and status, of course. On the amount, please enter it. So to just avoid all the worries and doubts. Next thing, what I want to do is to actually call the UI flows. This is a new action that you can use. So I want to call my UI flows for the web to convert this PLN value to USD. Second thing I have to choose is which kind of a web browser I want to use for this purpose. Then third is the question about the mode. I will talk about the modes later, but basically for this purpose I will use the attended because I'm logged into this machine and I just want to show it here on this desktop. So now as you can see, there is this PLN currency as an input parameter, and here I will put the amount. Now the next step is going to be the UI flows again, but this time I want to call my desktop version to store this new invoice in my legacy CRM application. Again, I want to use attended mode. Now the account, the contact, and now you can see there's this converted currency as the output. So I'll use it. And the status. So, are you ready? Are we going to call it? Yep. All right. So let me just hit the test. and John Smith. So now I can just sit back, grab a coffee, and see how it is running. So note that once it is running, actually there are going to be two things happening. So now the UI flows, or the Power Automate, through my Azure on-premises gateway is contacting my computer and is triggering the UI flow recorded in my CDS environment, and is simply replaying all the steps that were created or recorded once I was working to create those UI flows. So as you saw, the UI flows for the web has already finished its execution. The currency was converted and taken back to the flow, and now it has been passed to another step, the second step, which is run the UI flows for the desktop. And already you can see that the Contoso invoicing application has been triggered, and everything is just working fine. No issues. I'm surprised, really. I'm really surprised, because when I was training this application to show it to you, I was going into so many errors, but I'm just so happy that it's working fine. Small issue with the format of the amount, but let's leave that. All right. So that's an issue that we can try to handle, because once we are aware what kind of a data those specific fields are waiting for, then we can actually adjust and fix those issues. But the point is that the value was converted, so somehow it is really just running as we want it. So now I'm just doing these final touches. All right, and done. One of the outcomes is the record ID that I wanted to use. Cool, huh? Very simple, but very effective. Okie dokie. So, as I mentioned, we have two versions of the RPA. I mean, two ways the RPA can run. We have attended and unattended. The difference between them is the attended version is like when you have employees sitting in front of the computer working on the application. So this is how the RPA in attended mode works. It's simply acting as a human being working on a computer. You can see how the mouse is moving because you're logged into the computer. Well, that's the requirement. There has to be an active user session on the machine, because this RPA then is working like on the behalf of this user. But the computer is used by the RPA, not the real user. This is just for those single tasks, like when the user has just a button saying copy data from this system to that system, and then RPA is just doing the work. Now the unattended version, the major difference is that the requirement to even run the unattended version is that there cannot be anyone logged to the computer. The computer must be up and running, but there cannot be any active session of any user. And then, whereas the attended can be just like a single instance, the unattended, there can be multiple instances running multiple virtual machines, for example. So if you have multiple of those tasks required to move data from one system to another, or to integrate the systems by clicking their UIs, then actually you can just create multiple of those virtual machines and then bond them under a single in the single hub to run in the unattended mode. Now, to be able to run an unattended mode, you need to have a thing that is called a cluster. So once you create your first virtual machine with your first RPA bot present there, then it's going to be like the orchestrator. This is going to be the main RPA in this cluster. But then having second and third and more gateways installed on more machines, then instead of just registering a new gateways, you can add them to existing cluster, to existing gateway. And so they are like all bound under the same orchestrator that simply delivers or splits those tasks between all those available bots that are just waiting to get those tasks and work. Important thing is that at a specific moment of time, there obviously cannot be two instances of bot doing two different things. I mean, there cannot be even two instances of the bot doing the same things. So the more instances you want to have run parallelly, the more virtual machines you need to have. And last thing I want to say is about the licensing. So when we're talking about the RPA running the attended mode, because it is just mimicking a single user, a single employee, then their costs is a little bit more predictable, because it is just $40 per a bot. So the bot is just a computer. Oh yeah, that's also one important thing. In terms of a bot, when talking about the Microsoft, we are thinking about a single machine. A bot is just a single machine. So we are not paying for the UI flows instances. We are not paying for the UI flows recorded flows. No, we are paying for the machine. And then machine can run multiple activities, but one at a time. So for this attended mode, you have to pay $40 per a bot. That includes this individual plan, $15 plus RPA. Now, when speaking about the unattended RPA, then you have to buy this additional add-on that costs $150. Plus, you need to buy plans for the Power Automates, because, as I said, the Power Automate is triggering the UI flows. So either you go into the licensing by flow, which starts at $500 per month, or if you have like just a single bot that you want to run in unattended mode, then you can as well go into the per user plan. So then one unattended RPA bot costs you either $250 when speaking about the per flow plan, or $165 per month per bot. And that's it. Thank you very much for your presence, for your questions, for your discussion on the chat. I hope that this session really helped you to understand what the UI flows is, how it works, how you can use it, or where you can use it. I hope that it also inspired you a little bit to use UI flows in your premises. If you have any questions about the UI flows or any other component of the Power Platform, you have quite a big number of ways you can contact me. So either through my email, or through Twitter, or my LinkedIn, or YouTube, or even my blog. Anywhere, anyhow, I will answer to your questions. So don't hesitate to ask them. Once again, thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of the Office 365 Nashville. And I hope to see you soon in person somewhere soon. Thanks.